The hallway was cold and silent, except for the sound of heavy boots on metal floors. Jace stood outside the cell door, holding a tablet in one hand and trying not to frown. The message had been clear. Special prisoner. Dangerous. Do not engage. He had seen dangerous things before: smugglers, mutants, even pirates from the Outer Rim. But this time felt different. There was something in the air. Thick, tense, like a storm waiting to break. The steel door hissed and opened. Two armored. Guards dragged in a figure, her wrists bound in glowing cuffs, neck chained with a thick collar. She stumbled as they pushed her forward. She didn't scream. She didn't speak. She didn't even growl, but her eyes burned like two silver moons in a dark sky. Her skin was pale gray, with patches of dark fur along her arms and spine. Her body looked strong, muscular, but thin, like she had not eaten well in weeks. Her legs bent slightly backward, more like an animal than a human. Her claws were long, sharp, and still wet with blood. Beast-class hybrid, one of the guards. Muttered, barely speaks. Killed 2 handlers during transfer. Jace stepped forward slowly, looking at her. She stood there, breathing hard, watching him like a wild predator. She didn't blink. She's staying here? Jace asked, confused. Command says she's yours now, the second guard replied. Study her. Feed her. Don't turn your back. The door slammed shut behind them, leaving Jace alone in the cell with her. He took a careful breath and spoke gently. Do you understand me? No reply. She turned and walked to the far corner, crouched low, and sat with her back to. The wall eyes still on him. Silent. Still. Jace placed the food tray near her, keeping a safe distance. He didn't expect her to touch it, but she did. Slowly. Cautiously. Her fingers were trembling. That night, Jace sat at his desk across the cell, typing his report. Subject shows no signs of communication. Defensive, but calm. Not feral, but alert, watching me. He looked up. She was still there. Same corner, same stare. He sighed and leaned back in his chair. What did they do to you? He whispered Dot at midnight. The temperature dropped. The cell's heating systems were weak. Jace pulled on his jacket and noticed the figure in the corner trembling. She was cold. But still, she didn't ask, didn't speak, didn't move. He picked up a thermal blanket, walked slowly toward her, and gently laid it down near her feet. She didn't strike, just looked up at him with tired, confused eyes. He backed away and returned to his chair. Minutes later, she pulled the blanket around herself, curled up, and shut her eyes. The next morning, a medical drone entered to scan her. She roared, jumped up, and slashed at it, breaking its lens. Jace shouted, "Stop!" surprisingly. She stopped. She looked at him. I said, "Stop," he said again, slowly. She blinked, tilted her head, and sat back down. Jace stared at her, confused. You understood that, didn't you? Still no answer, but her silence no longer felt empty. It felt heavy, like she was holding something inside. That evening, Jace reviewed her data. No known species. DNA part human, part unknown. Records. Said she was captured in Sector 13, where 3 full squads had vanished. The notes ended with one line. Do not trust her. He shut the file. She was sitting again in the corner blanket wrapped tightly around her. Her eyes followed him everywhere. He walked closer this time. Sat on the floor a few meters away from her. I'm Jace, he said. Still no reply. You? Don't have to speak, he continued. I just want to understand you. Silence. But if you can hear me, if you can understand me, maybe you're not the beast they say you are. For the first time, her ears moved, just a little, like she was listening. Jace smiled, just a bit. That's a start. He didn't know her name. He didn't know her story. But he did know one thing now. She wasn't just a prisoner. She was something else. Something broken. But not beyond saving. And maybe, just maybe, she didn't want to be a beast anymore. Asterisk, she didn't sleep. Chase woke up in the middle of the night to find her still sitting in the same corner, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. She wasn't curled up like before. She was watching. Not just with wildness there. Was focused now. Curiosity? He blinked, heart pounding. You don't sleep? He whispered, no answer. But her head tilted, just a little. He turned away and closed his eyes again. But he could feel her watching. The way an animal watches fire, not with fear, but caution. Morning came. The security cameras showed her movements overnight. She had barely shifted. But something was different. Small things. She had touched the water tap, sniffed the lights, even mimicked his sleeping posture for a moment. Chase reviewed the footage and leaned back. You're not just a beast, he said under his breath. You're learning. Later that day, Chase entered the cell with a datapad and a tray of food. She was still in the same spot, but her eyes flicked quickly to the tray. He sat down across from her and began eating his own food. Slowly, deliberately, he picked up a spoon and scooped. She watched. Then, as if testing a memory, she copied him awkwardly at first. She dropped the spoon twice, her claws too large for the small grip. But she didn't give up. She kept trying. Chase smiled. That's it. You're not just copying, you're thinking. Still no words. But that night, something else changed. A group of guards passed outside her cell, laughing loudly. One of them, a tall man named Cray, paused, peering through. The glass. Still alive in there, Jace? Cray laughed. She eat you yet? Jace ignored him. Cray banged the glass hard. A sound echoed in the cell. The beast flinched, but not from fear. Her eyes flared. She stood up slowly, walked toward the glass, and stared directly at Cray. Cray stepped back. Creepy thing. Jace noticed her claws twitch, but she didn't strike. She just stood. She's starting to understand who the real threats are, Jace thought. That evening, Jace read aloud from a small book. It wasn't required. It wasn't even smart, but he felt it might help. There was a girl in chains, he read softly, but she was more than the world allowed her to be. He glanced up. She was listening, not blinking. Her breathing had slowed. And when the chains fell, she didn't run. She chose to stay. He stopped reading. A long silence followed. Then she moved. Quietly, she walked over to her corner, pulled the blanket closer, and lay down. This time, she faced him as she rested. And this time, her eyes closed. She slept. The next morning, Chase brought in an old sketch pad. He sat near the glass wall and began to draw. Nothing special, just shapes, lines, faces. She approached, not close, but closer than ever before. She sat down and watched the pad as he drew. Her ears moved slightly each time he changed shapes. To try? He asked, holding out a charcoal stick. She didn't move. He left the stick on the floor between them and stepped back. A few minutes later, while he pretended not to watch, she reached out and picked it up. Clumsily, she dragged it across. The floor one jagged black line. She dropped the stick and looked at him. Jace smiled. That's a good start. She didn't smile back, but her eyes were softer now. At night, as lights dimmed and quiet returned, she stood once more and looked at him from across the room. Then, slowly, she walked toward the center of the cell. Halfway between them, she sat down, still keeping distance, but no longer hiding. She placed one clawed hand over her chest, tapped it once, then pointed to him. It wasn't much, but it was a question, or maybe a name. Jace pointed to himself. Jace. She tilted her head. He repeated slowly. Yazki. She didn't speak, but she tapped her chest again. Slower, softer, and stayed there, sitting halfway between her corner and his side of the room. Half a step closer to trust. End of part 2. Jace froze. He hadn't meant to. She had been sitting near the heater, her head tilted in sleep. He was moving a fallen blanket when his hand touched her shoulder. Her body jolted like lightning had struck it. She jumped up, claws out, breathing heavy, eyes wide, wild. Jace stepped back with both hands raised. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. But she wasn't looking at him, Dot. She was staring at the wall, trembling, like the touch had pulled her into a memory far away from this cell. She didn't speak. She didn't scream. She just stood still. Jace saw it then, beneath the edge of her fur, near the shoulder blade, a deep scar. Not a cut from a fight. No, Dot, it was clean. Burned in a brand. Jace's. Heart sank. Someone had claimed her like property. Hours passed. She didn't return to her corner. She sat in the middle of the room, eyes low, silent again. The small trust that had begun to grow seemed broken. Jace didn't try to speak. Not yet. He waited, Dot, finally. As lights dimmed and the cell cooled, he sat down across from her, same spot as before. Slowly, he placed his drawing pad between them and began sketching again. Dot, no faces this time. Just stars. Stars. Above a mountain. Dot, stars. Above a sleeping figure. Peeked once. Then again. He turned the pad around and pointed. That's you, he said softly. Under the sky, not in chains, not branded. Still no reply. But this time, she didn't look away. The next morning, something small changed. She walked to the wash station on her own. She used it. She cleaned her arms, her face. She looked into the reflective wall for a long time. Studied herself. Then she turned and pointed to Jace. Asterisk. Tapped her chest once, then pointed again to him. Jace looked up, surprised. Are you asking my name again? She didn't answer, but she stepped closer. Just 2 steps. Jace took a breath. Jace. Then slowly he pointed to her. You? She hesitated, Dot, then opened her mouth. The voice was low, rough, barely a whisper. Ray. Ya. Rhea. Jace repeated, Dot. Her eyes blinked. Once, twice, yes? He asked. A small nod. Raya. He finally had her name. Later that day, Jace filed his report quietly. Subject name confirmed. Rhea. Speech limited. Memory damaged. Shows high intelligence. Traumatic response to touch. Signs of past abuse. He paused. Trust forming, slowly. That night, Jace brought food and a scarf. Not for her neck, but for comfort. She took it without a sound. Held it tight in her claws. Sat near the heater. She didn't eat right away. Instead, she looked at him and gently pulled her long dark hair aside and showed him the scar. Fully. No fear. Jace didn't move, didn't speak, just looked at it and then at her. And said the only words that mattered. That shouldn't have happened to you. Rhea turned away, but her tail flicked once, a slow, sweeping motion across the floor. It brushed Jace's boot. Not an attack. Not by mistake. It was the first time she touched him willingly. She didn't sleep in the corner that night. She moved closer to the wall near his bed, close enough to listen, close enough to protect. Jace turned off the lights and whispered her name. Rhea. And for the first time, in a soft voice filled with something almost human, she answered back. Safe. Jace jumped from his bed, heart racing. The prison shook with distant screams and loud crashes. It wasn't a drill. Something had gone very wrong. He turned and froze. Rhea was standing in the center of the room. Her cuffs had powered down. The door to their cell had slid open. She was UNCHAINED uncontrolled unstoppable for a long second. She stared at him, her glowing eyes unreadable. Jace slowly raised his hands. Rhea, listen. You don't have to run. She didn't move. In the hallway outside, 2 prisoners ran past. One stopped, saw her, and reached for a weapon. Big mistake. With a flash of motion, Rhea pounced. Her claws slashed, fast and clean. The man fell hard. The second prisoner screamed and ran. Jace, he backed into the corner, shaking. You saved me? Rhea turned, breathing hard. Her chest rose and fell with heavy growls. Blood dripped from her claws. Then she looked at him again, and stepped back into the cell. Outside, chaos grew louder. Emergency lights flickered. Gas hissed from broken vents. Jace grabbed a medkit and tried to seal the cell door. It wouldn't respond. Rhea stood by it, body tense, watching every shadow. Rhea, Jace whispered, you can go. You're free now. She didn't move. You could escape. Still nothing. Instead, she glanced at the hallway, then at Jace, then stepped between him and the open door. She wasn't running. She was guarding. Suddenly, a figure appeared at the end of the hall. Cray, the rude guard. He was hurt and limping. Jace, Cray shouted. Help me. Jace ran forward. But the moment Cray saw Rhea, he froze. What is that thing doing out? She's not a thing, Jace snapped. Cray raised his stun rifle. She's a monster, he fired. Rhea didn't dodge. She shielded Jace with her own body. The bolt hit her shoulder. She staggered but didn't fall. Cray tried to reload, but Rhea leapt, growling like thunder. She slammed into him, knocked the rifle away, and held him down with one clawed hand on his chest. Jace ran forward. Stop! He's not worth it. For a moment, Rhea trembled. Her claws dug into the floor. Then she stepped away. She had a choice. She chose not to kill. Cray scrambled and ran, bleeding and terrified. Rhea looked at Jace and collapsed. Blood spilled from her shoulder. The stun shot had burned through skin and muscle. Jace caught her before she hit the floor. Rhea, stay awake. She growled weakly, her breathing shallow. You saved me, he whispered. Again. He dragged her back into the cell, slammed the door shut manually, and sealed it with emergency override. Outside, the chaos faded. As lockdown began, prison drones moved to contain the riot. Inside, Jace worked fast cleaning her wound, wrapping the bandages. Rhea's eyes flickered open. You? Safe? She whispered. He nodded. Thanks to you? Later, she slept this time in his bed, wrapped in clean cloth, her face calm. Jace sat beside her, exhausted, watching over her now. He thought back to the day she arrived, collared, snarling. Chained. Now she bled for him, protected him, chose him. She wasn't a beast. She was something else. And when she whispered his name in her sleep, Jace knew the truth. She had already chosen her place, right here. By his side. Jace sat at the edge of the bed, not moving. Rhea's head rested on the pillow, her shoulder still wrapped in bandages. The wound was healing, but slowly. Outside the cell, the prison was under repair. After the riot, all guards were on edge. No one trusted anyone, but inside this room, it was quiet. Rhea stirred slightly, her body tense. Her claws twitched. Then her lips moved. Jace. He leaned closer, unsure if he had imagined it. Jace, she whispered again, barely audible, like a child afraid of waking ghosts. The next morning, Rhea sat by the wall, arms around her knees. She didn't look at him. She hadn't spoken since that whisper in the dark. Jace placed a tray of food near her, but said nothing. He didn't want to push her. Instead, he sat across the room and waited. After some time, Rhea picked up the spoon again. Still clumsy. But her grip was better now. He noticed she ate slower today. Like she didn't just want to feed, but to feel normal. Then, as he cleaned up, her voice came again, this time awake. You? Dream? Jace turned, surprised. What? Rhea stared at the floor. You make sounds. In night, he chuckled softly. So do you. She looked up, startled. You said my name, Jace said gently. Twice, Rhea blinked. Not remember. That's okay, he replied. I remembered for you. They didn't talk much after that, but every word mattered. Rhea began using short phrases. Food good. No paying now. Bad dream. Jace answered each one with patience. At night, she no longer slept by the wall. She moved closer. Not too close. Just enough that he could hear her breathing. It was the sound of trust being born. One night, Jace woke suddenly. Cold sweat. Racing heart. A nightmare. Fire. Screams. The same war that had taken his friends. He sat up, gasping. Then he felt it. A warm hand. Clawed, yes, but soft. Rhea was sitting beside the bed, her hand on his chest. Her eyes watched him silently. You. Hurt, she said softly. Only inside, he replied, voice shaking. She didn't understand all his words, but she understood pain. Slowly, she moved beside him, sat on the floor, leaning against the bed, silent. Watching over him. Days passed. Rhea's body grew stronger. Her speech improved. One day, she pointed to the burn scar on her shoulder. That? No heal. Jace nodded. Some wounds don't, but they remind us who we are. Rhea tilted her head. Who I am. He paused. You're Rhea. You're not a beast, not a weapon. You're someone who protects. She didn't reply. But she stood a little straighter after that. Later, Jace brought her something new. A pendant. Simple, made of metal. Nothing fancy. He handed it to her. This isn't a collar. It's yours. Your choice. Rhea took it gently, held it in her palm. Then, without a word, she put it on. Not because she had to, because she wanted to. That night, something changed. As Jace turned off the lights, Rhea stood near the bed and looked down at him. Her voice was low, but firm. I guard. Jace blinked. What? She nodded. You sleep. I guard now. He smiled. Okay, Rhea. He lay back, letting his eyes close. And for the first time in a long while, he slept without fear, because she stayed beside him, not because of chains, but because of choice. Asterisk. Rhea was sitting near the doorway, calm as always. But when the new arrival stepped into the hallway outside, something inside her changed. Jace noticed it instantly. Her breath stopped. Her ears stood up. Her claws extended. Rhea? He asked. Worried, she didn't answer. She stood. And growled. The new visitor was tall, armored, and carried a hunting staff. His badge read, Recovery Agent. Off-world bounty. Division. He glanced inside the cell and smiled. That's her. Target confirmed. Jace stepped between them. She's not going anywhere. The man laughed. She's property. Escaped weapon from Sector X. You don't even know what she is. I know exactly what she is, Jace said. Voice steady. She's Rhea, and she's not yours. The bounty hunter smirked. She was made to obey. He raised a small device, pressing a button. Rhea screamed. She dropped to her knees, clutching her head. Sparks lit under her skin where old tech was buried deep forgotten, but still active. Jace ran to her, panicked. Rhea! The hunter stepped forward. That chip inside her spine still answers to command. I say down, she stays down. I say kill, she obeys. No, Jace growled, not anymore. He grabbed the man's wrist. The hunter struck him back hard. Rhea looked up, eyes glowing with raw fury. She moved faster than anyone could react. The bounty hunter slammed into the wall. She didn't roar, didn't speak. She just broke the device. Sparks flew. The signal died. Then she stood over him, breathing hard, her claws shaking. Say it again, she growled low. Say, I am yours. The bounty hunter whimpered. Say it. She stepped back, turned away, and let him live. Jace pulled her aside as security drones arrived to remove the hunter. Rhea sat down, her arms tight around her legs. She wasn't crying, but she looked broken, like a door had been opened inside her. An old fire had come rushing in. Jace knelt beside her. You're free, Rhea. You chose not to kill. She shook her head. No, I wanted to. I still want to. But you didn't, Jace whispered. That's what makes you more than what they made you. That night, Rhea said nothing. She sat on the floor beside Jace's bed, the pendant still around her neck. But now, she was quiet in a different way, not distant, just deep in thought. Jace reached down and gently placed a hand on her arm. She didn't flinch. I know it hurts, he said softly. But you're not marked by what they did to you. She looked up slowly. You're marked by what you chose today. Later, she stood and walked to the mirror. She stared at her own reflection for a long time. Then she raised one claw and scratched the burn scar on her shoulder deep enough to draw blood. Jace jumped. Rhea. But she wasn't trying to harm herself. She was drawing a line through it, changing the young brand, rewriting it with her own mark. I choose me, she whispered. And this time, she smiled just a little. Jace smiled too, because now she wasn't just a protector. She was starting to become her own person. Jace woke slowly, the early light from the cell's skylight casting soft shadows across the room. And there she was, Rey, a dot curled not in the corner, not by the wall, but beside the bed, one hand resting gently against the frame, eyes open. Calm. She was watching him, not as a soldier, not as a weapon, but as someone who chose to be there. The days after the attack had passed quietly. The bounty hunter was taken away. New orders arrived from command, but this time there were no threats, no experiments, just silence. And that silence let them breathe, let her become. Jace noticed the changes, subtle but real. Rhea had started wearing the pendant every day, touching it now and then when she was deep in thought. She no longer growled at passing guards. She ate with patience. She listened carefully. She even helped fix the broken drone. In the corner with quiet curiosity. But the biggest change? She smiled, not often. But when she did, it felt like a sunrise after a long, cold night. One afternoon, Jace found her sitting on the floor with his sketchpad. She was drawing, not figures, but a scene. 2 shapes sitting under stars. One small, one with a tail. Jace sat beside her, unsure what to say. Rhea looked up. This memory, she said softly. Not dream, he smiled. No, it's real. It happened. She nodded. I like real better. That evening, before lights dimmed, Jace placed a folded cloth on her lap. She looked at it, puzzled. He opened it, revealing a small, simple ID. Chip. Not for control, for freedom. You're registered now, he said. No one can claim you, not as property, not as a weapon. Rhea held it gently, like it might break. Why? You do this? Jace looked into her eyes. Because I wanted. You to choose. Rhea touched her chest slowly. I already did. That night, Jace had a dream. He was running through the woods. Lost, cold, but someone was behind him. Not chasing Dot, guarding Dot. He turned and saw her, walking beside him, silent and strong. He woke with a breath and found her still there, sitting beside the bed. Watching him, Rhea reached up and gently touched his chest, just over his heart. I heard. Heartbeat, she said. Jace took her hand, held it gently. You keep it steady, he replied. Morning came. Rhea stood by the open cell door. No chains, no collar, no orders. She could walk away now. Anywhere at all. Jace looked at her, trying not to ask, not to hope. Rhea turned and walked back to him. I stay, she said. Why? Rhea placed one hand over her chest. Because now, my heart beats for you. In the logs, they called her a beast in chains, but in his arms, she was something far greater. Not just a protector, not just a survivor, but a soul who found freedom through kindness and gave loyalty, not out of fear, but love. The end.